All right, everyone. On today's episode of Detour, I'm going to walk you through why I don't really like Steve Jobs and why I kind of love Tim Cook. Uh, that's not a popular statement, but it's something that I truly believe, and I'm going to tell you why. All right, so today's episode of Detour, we're going to talk about Tim Cook, who is the current CEO of Apple. And the reason I wanted to talk about him is they recently had an event, their kind of annual or biannual Apple event, where they introduced a suite of new products and services. And I'm not here to talk about the products or services, although I was fascinated by all of them. I think they all have an interesting place in our consumption. I really wanted to talk about Tim Cook and his leadership style. So Apple obviously was co-founded by Steve Jobs and then Steve Wozniak, two really different personalities. Steve Jobs is 100% a visionary, responsible for the iPod, the iPhone, iTunes, a big part of the personal computing space. But though he's an incredible visionary, I've always had a problem with his leadership style, his management style, and I clearly have a problem with the way he handled his personal life. And I look at someone like Steve Jobs, where so many people idolize, and they end up emulating in their careers, in the way they manage people and the way they lead people. There's this notion that leaders are cutthroat and arrogant. And Steve Jobs is a visionary and an incredible foresight on where his company and product and the way they were developing product. But I would argue that he was not a good manager. And when I look at a company like Apple today, people kind of struggle with their innovation. And maybe Tim Cook isn't the most innovative person, or the way that he's pushed the company, but he is CEO of, on any given day, the largest company ever. And I think he's done an incredible job of keeping Apple at the top of corporate America or global corporate structures. And he is someone that looks like he manages so that the entire company is able to participate in the success of the business. The way he handled the Apple event and the way he complimented every team on their product, and the way that he gave shine for each department to kind of to unravel their feature or service to the world, is a leadership style that I didn't really see with Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was it was the Steve Jobs show. He always felt he was ultimately responsible for the success of the company, and I didn't see that he really shared that limelight. And I think when you're building a company like Apple, 100%, it takes a lot of people to have that success. Ideas are only as good as the execution. And I feel like people like Tim Cook, uh, Sundar, who's the CEO of Google, Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, these companies, after their founders have stepped down and not involved on the day-to-day operations, have continued to push these companies to the top of their industries. And I think it's a testament that visionary outlook helps you in the early days to create something that could potentially be a big business. But the proper leadership and management style is very different once you are successful. And this is an important topic to me because I actually struggle with that myself on how to manage and lead our company. Obviously, my business partner, Andres, and I started the company. We had a vision for a business, and that vision has evolved and changed, and so has our management styles. And I think we also have learned that we have to evolve as leaders and managers. And I really want to take the time today to talk about that there are a number of ways to run and manage a company. There's so many books, so many podcasts, so many videos on how to lead people. I have a particular way that I think suits myself and my beliefs and how people should be treated. And there's others that have a different version of it. A lot of people, like myself, believe that leadership starts with the action. And so for me, I lead with the way the time I show up for work, how involved I am with different elements of the business, um, and I feel that I love the notion of a, the leader eats last, and in our business, that's always been the case. We've always been focused on the company first, our staff, and then us. And often it gets lost in the messaging that it is about the founder and the CEO. And in today's entrepreneur world, we have put CEOs and founders on a pedestal above everyone else. And if you look at, and I'm a victim of that too. I've made Menlo Club and our brands about me, and that's really more of a marketing message, more so than I'm the only one here doing work message. And I never want that to ever come across. And I look at what Tim Cook did, and I was like, wow, I was really blown away on how he complimented his team, how he gave the spotlight to all members of his team. And I think as you go through a company, just know if you're an employee at a company, you just know that the CEOs are constantly struggling with this themselves, and you're going to find CEOs that and founders that are empathetic to their staff and understanding that you have to constantly motivate people around you, but also know that if you do have a founder and CEO and it is always about them, then maybe that's not the right place for you. And that type of attitude does create a hostile environment and a backlash. And it's something that I think that I'm constantly learning on how to lead and manage better. And everyone says you got to have the right people to have that organization. And I've had this conversation on Detour about that it's all about a culture fit, not necessarily a talent or a skill fit. And I still believe that more than ever, that if you don't have the right culture in a company and the staff doesn't represent that culture, you're never going to create the environment that everyone wants to work in. And I think even when you're looking for a job, don't just look at the company because that's the company you want to work at. Make sure that it's actually the culture you want to work at, and it's it also is similar to the interest you have, because in today's economy, you have a choice as a founder, as an employee, to be in whatever environment that you choose to be in. So if you want to be in an environment with young people and it's a little more chaotic and it's a startup environment, you can go work at a company like that. Just know that there are going to be positives in that situation and there's going to be negatives in that situation. Same with being a founder. A founder can create whatever environment they like, and if you want to have a loose environment and have fun, know that there are negatives to that situation, and that negative could be people maybe don't show up on time, lack of structure in certain parts of the organization. So it's a give and take, and it's something that I'm learning along with you guys on how to manage and how to grow a business. And I want to build teams like how Apple and Microsoft and Google have done. So I'm constantly looking at these people as, how do they speak to their staff? How do they speak to their public? How do they speak about the messaging of their company? And I'm actually blown away with more of the CEOs that have come after visionary founders. To come after Bill Gates and take your company to be the biggest company in the world, to come after Steve Jobs and make your company the biggest company in the world, there's something to be said about that we don't celebrate. We celebrate Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, but we don't ever look at all the negative things that came out of a culture that Steve Jobs and Bill Gates created. They were cutthroat, they were vicious, they were extremely selfish in making sure that their business was above everything else. And to see the way that these companies have now translated into like a different company that want to do good, they want to change the world, and it's a balance. And so maybe the conclusion really is, if you're a visionary of a business that created a concept that ultimately became the reason why your business became successful, doesn't necessarily mean you're the manager or you're the CEO of that business. And that's something I'm struggling. Maybe I'm better suited to be a visionary type person for the business, be the idea person, and find people around me that can execute the ideas, build the team, build the infrastructure, and let me be the person that go create the idea. I'm willing as a founder to let go where I am weak. And as an employee or a founder, you need to know your strengths and your weaknesses, and may know you're more of an execution person versus a visionary person, or vice versa. And I think we should all look up to these folks, because it's very rare that these people get the credit, because they didn't create the idea, they didn't create the iPhone. They're not sexy in terms of the public image, but kudos to them. And I hope that we start seeing books and videos and stories and podcasts about their management style, because that's something that I look up to. So let me know what you guys think about that. I'd love to hear if you work at a company that has a very visionary founder, but management style is quite different, or you have a great manager who's not a visionary, but he just knows how to lead people. Love to hear. I'm always trying to learn. And see you guys in the next episode.